All right. Welcome. It is afternoon, I believe. You know, the days kind of tend to run together about this time of the week. MMS is always an excellent thing, and I love this conference. How many of this is your first time to the Microsoft Management Summit? Wow. You know, they're really, and looking at the stats this year, I think there was about a 50-50. So, you know, 50% alumni, 50% new people. So that's actually definitely awesome. You know, I'd like to talk to you, some of you later on, to figure out why that is. Maybe it's just because of the interest in System Center 2012. I don't know, but you know, MMS every year, my IT Forum has been here since the very beginning. We'll talk about that. I got some slides on that, but you know, this conference actually started in 1998 as something else, and it was actually a IT Forum conference for a while till Microsoft took it over. But getting here like a Sunday before the conference starts, I'm always energized and excited. But there's this point, you know, where you're just running, going to sessions, technical stuff, and eventually there's just so much that your mind can take, you know. And the older I get, definitely the less I can take. So there was that point where I hit that line. I think it was last night after the 1E, when I actually attended the 1E party last night. Where I was just like, it's time to go home. You know, I've learned a lot. I've been running around. I don't know how many of you feel like that, but so welcome to this session. I'm Rod Trent, founder of MyITForum.com, and this is Ron Crumbaker, our CTO. Ron.
Hello. How are y'all?
He's currently tweeting right now, as you guys have probably heard or seen from other folks. We had this Twitter Army thing. In fact.
Gave a Vespa away.
Yeah, gave that Vespa
Big old
$5,000
orange
Vespa. From SolarWinds, by the way.
70 miles to the gallon.
70 miles, and it is a
45 mile an hour top speed.
It is a full tank of gas, so the guy's going to ride it
almost
home.
Mustang related.
Yeah.
Could outrun the Mustang. How about that?
So yeah, we do a lot of the community stuff. I don't know how many you saw in the conference guide about the Meet and Geek and things like that, but we do the community stuff for the conference. And so this session really is about getting you guys together and letting you hear a little bit about the community, which, you know, transcends into MMS, so you kind of understand it a little bit. I don't know how many other types of conferences that you've been to, but my personal opinion, and people that I talk to, MMS is just a totally different conference than anything that you've ever been to. You know, you go to Tech Ed, it's just some good content, but a little watered down sometimes, more marketing. MMS, on the other hand, there's a lot of technical sessions, but it's really that interaction, you know, within the hallways. If you reach out and connect with somebody, you know, maybe you're here with people from your team or from your company, but it's just that connection with other people. Me personally, the sessions are great, the technical sessions are great, we've got some great speakers, but it's that interaction where I actually get the most value and sometimes get the best technical information. So, you know, I know it is Thursday, and a lot of you are looking forward to today and tomorrow for extra sessions, but if you haven't done so yet, you should really reach out to somebody new. You know, this conference is great, but you're really not getting the most benefit out of it if you just keep to yourselves and just hoard that information, you know, on paper. So definitely reach out and talk to somebody this week. I know it's easy to do in the vendor booths and the expo, but like I said, just reach out. You'll get so much more out of this event than if you just attend the sessions. So this session, we're going to talk about community a little bit. What's interesting, the word community is, you know, battered about a little bit. It takes on all kinds of nuances and things like that. But quite honestly, community is a bunch of like-minded folks who get together. You know, for example, you've got ops manager people, you've got configuration manager, but there's all kinds of subsets of those too. But community is just the ability to get people together, you know, with a common interest, like-minded people, to learn from each other. And, you know, that's what we've done at MyIT Forum within that community. It's been a System Center community for such a long time. And that's what we have done there, is given people the ability to connect. And it's always been a free resource. A lot of, I don't even know if they do it anymore. I don't know how many people actually use it. Experts Exchange, anybody use that at all? You can actually get that free if you use Google Cache. Most people know that. But they do charge, but at the same time, we don't do that. We feel that as a community, if you're going to ask somebody for information in a hallway, you don't want them to ask you for your credit card first, right? Well, that's how communities should work. Online, offline, real-world user groups, and just things like that. So free is free. We talk about My IT Forum a little bit. It's just sponsor. It is sponsor invested, so we have a lot of sponsors on the site. A lot of the people within the expo, some of the larger companies, they actually sponsor the site because they want to sponsor you. They want to sponsor what we're doing to make sure that content and community stuff remains free. So we really appreciate our sponsors. So if you go out to the site, you'll see banners and stuff like that. And it's really unobtrusive. Those vendors are not trying to be in your face and sell something constantly. Because the vendors that tend to come and hover around My IT Forum are the ones that actually get community. In fact, one good example, our platinum sponsor, 1E, you've probably seen that crazy booth with the magicians in the expo. We actually started out together at the same time. My IT Forum started at the same time they started the company, and they were our very first sponsor ever. And we have actually grown up together, but they got community, and they have always gotten community, and they've just always invested and always participated to try to make sure the community stays alive, but also show that type of community from within their company. There's really nice people that work there. So if you've not checked them out, they do power management things, and they do things with licensing software and making that easy for you. So if you've not had a chance to stop by, or, well, I guess the expo is closing, so if you find somebody with a 1E badge, definitely talk to them. Let's go on here. So let me give you just a brief history. It's always interesting. You see websites and things online. You can go and you see things that are successful, and you always wonder, how did that start? It's interesting, too, because it kind of coincides with how MMS started, because My IT Forum and MMS were kind of synonymous there for a while. My IT Forum started back in the SMS 1.x days. Some of you are probably, since you're new to this conference, maybe you're kind of new to System Center. There was no such thing as System Center back when we started. In fact, there was just SMS 1.x. And for those that worked with that and remember that, SMS 1.x was the worst possible application ever. It's almost like Microsoft, an employee at Microsoft was developing this on the weekends at home, decided to put it out, and let's see if somebody likes it.
Well, 1.0 was okay. 1.1 was just absolutely horrible.
Yeah.
1.2 was okay again. But that 1.1 was what made everybody start screaming and going to the internet to find solutions.
And the worst part about that was, Microsoft didn't know what they had, so they had very little support for it. They actually very little support for that product. So what came from that, people needed support. Microsoft, I think, at one point was actually surprised that people were actually using the product because they'd see it online. It was back in the days on the internet when most of the web pages looked like it was created in front page. For those that remember that, everybody thought it was cool. I can use front page. I can create a website. There you go. So it was very interesting in that respect. But what grew up, because it wasn't being supported very well, was just kind of by assimilation. People started to request information. I worked for a large financial firm at the time. People sometimes, think about the economic woes of the 2000s, I guess you could call, but things, economic problems recently, and they say, oh, we've got such trouble. But what people forget, and if you've not been around as long as I have, I'm actually older than I look. Back in the 90s, we had the same economic issues, and people, even this large accounting firm, we were laying people off. We were down, worked for a firm, they had 70,000 PCs at the time worldwide, and to be able to support these, laptops were just starting to come in. We had just migrated off those old Compact 3s and stuff like that.
Wow.
Oh, yeah, that was good. So we needed to be able to manage these with very little IT staff. So even though SMS 1.x was a terrible product, we were still able to use that and basically save the IT staff and save the company with that. So it was at that point I became an evangelist for systems management because I got systems management. That's that aha moment. Systems management is so cool. Everything needs to be managed. So as we started posting online, just blindly, let's just post some tips and tricks and see what happens. And people found it, and they're like, "Oh, this is great information," and they started using it and consuming it. So we grew from an old site called swank.com. A lot of people mispronounced that, so it kind of sounded like a pornographic site, and people wouldn't use it. Swank.com, So we finally got past that. The MMS conference actually started out, it was called the Computing Edge, and then also Altiris owned it at one point back in Windows 2000 days. And then we migrated and became myitforum.com. So we've been myitforum.com since 2001. And it just continues to grow because we provide great content. We have a little over 135,000 unique visitors a day. And what's interesting about that is that's all about systems management. It doesn't necessarily have to be about Systems Center in general, but it's systems management. Everything within a Windows world, and now, as you've seen this week, everything in a mobile world and Linux and things like that, everything needs to be managed. Huh? iOS. Everything needs to be managed. So we've progressed and eventually became Microsoft named System Center. So it just continues to progress to provide value, content, support for those people that are using those products. I put up a little description here from Webster's Dictionary, a group of people having common interests, sharing, participation, and fellowship. And that really does kind of culminate, does put together what community is. But we'll talk a little bit more. We'll kind of go beyond that and talk about what community, at least to us, and what the people that we support, what they believe community should be online and offline. So what is a community? Just a quick little overview, and we'll go through those here real quick. The internet, okay? So everybody uses the internet. Use Google. Hopefully you're using Bing instead, right? Because we're at a Microsoft conference. Bing is actually a very good browser.
Yes.
Or decision engine, I guess I should put it.
Right.
So everybody uses the web. Community on the web allows people to come together at a central point from just about anywhere in the world. And there's blogs. Blogs have cropped up probably within the past 5 or 6 years. If you don't know what a blog is, then you've probably just kind of started with computers. I think even probably your parents know what a blog is, and probably most of them have them, right? And talk about how Johnny is doing so well in his job, and of course all the family members follow. User groups. User groups are part of that community, part of that ecosystem of the community. And when I say user groups, I talk about real-world user groups. Within your location where you're at geographically, how many actually belong to a user group right now? All right, so
not bad.
A few. That's interesting. MyITForum, we'll talk about that, but MyITForum offers user group services. So if you want to be able to start a user group within your locale, we can actually help you do that. So definitely hook up with me afterwards if you'd like to do that. We work with Microsoft to find you meeting spaces, arrange speakers, from our sponsor list, our preferred sponsor list, but also for people within the community. Like, I don't know how many of you attended some of these events this week with Johan. Johan's probably one of the most interesting speakers and just most knowledgeable. But in fact, we started a webcast series you may be aware of last year sometime, SCCM Guru webcast series, averaging a little over 1,500 attendees per session, and Johan's been on there, Michael Niehaus, if you're into MDT stuff. What's also interesting is since we're so coordinated with Microsoft Management Summit and Microsoft, even though we're not a Microsoft, we're completely third party. Our very next SCCM Guru webcast, first week in May, Brad Anderson, your keynote speaker this week, will actually be on to talk about some things about MMS, about System Center, and things like that. So if you happen to miss something or something happened during the week, maybe there were announcements in the expo, maybe there were announcements that didn't come through the keynote, you guys can hang out and listen to him. So definitely check that out. We'll have that in our event system on My IT Forum, so you can sign up and register for that. The community has definitely expanded significantly. We talked about the numbers on the website itself, so there's some expansion. But the community has also expanded because you look at this conference. We have close to 5,500 people this year. We've always kind of hovered around the 3,000 and eventually 4,000 mark, but we're talking about 5,500 people. How many have had trouble just getting to the bathroom at some point? Just walking through the crowd. That's a lot of people.
The girls don't.
Oh, you're fine with that?
The females are okay on getting to the restroom.
But it's tough having 5,500 people here. But, as we go to New Orleans next year, and hopefully you all know about that, in June next year we'll be in New Orleans, or New Orleans, how people pronounce it. Nolans. But it's a huge conference center. It's like 1.5 miles across. So yeah, if you want to go walking, get your exercise in, make sure you bring your little pedometer. You can talk, call the spouse and say, hey, I'm exercising, okay? And don't worry about me. But the Management Summit continues to expand, and I fully expect to see at least the 5,500. I expect to see that doubled next year. So as it's interesting what you see, at least from a My IT Forum evolution perspective, as System Center becomes more popular and we get more people at the Management Summit, as that is evangelized, My IT Forum kind of grows just along with that because you have to be able to support the product. And you really want to do it without creating the case that you might have to pay for through PSS or whatever it's called now, Microsoft Support Services.
One thing that we don't have listed on here is Twitter. And I don't know if of course, all you guys are subscribed to my Twitter feed, but yesterday was the anniversary when Twitter first started 6 years ago. So 6 years ago, yesterday was the very first tweet of all time. And then the second tweet was to tell the first tweet that, you're being a smart aleck. And then the third tweet was to fix a spelling error in the second tweet. So as we see technology evolve, the Facebooks come around, the Twitters come around, My IT Forum has evolved tremendously throughout that time frame as well. And we're continuing to evolve because we listen to the community. And if you look at the definition again that Rod had up there a little bit ago, it's participation. So without you guys, we don't survive. The forums, the community is nothing without the members, which are you guys. And the good thing about what I've been out walking around the expo hall talking to the vendors. Some vendors get that. They get that they need to listen to the community to make their products better. And you'll see those companies grow and mature. But you go talk to some of the other vendors out there and they're like, this is how I'm telling my customers to do things. And those probably won't be here in 2 to 3 years. It's sad. They have great products, but if they're not going to listen to the community and they're going to tell the community how to change the way that they do their deployments or how they manage their systems, they're not going to be around very much longer because the community is evolving and we have to embrace what you guys tell us. And, you can look through the years at Microsoft and you can see when they didn't get community and they suffered for it. And now they're actually getting community. Config Manager 2012 was 4 years in the making, 5 years in the making, and the MVP sat for many months and told the dev team and the product group managers, this is what we want, this is what the community wants, and they got it. And now we have CM12, which is the best config manager release that I've experienced, and I've been around since SMS 1.0. So we've got to get the community pieces, and we've got to get participation from you guys to improve everything because without you, we don't make that next step. We don't continue to evolve, and we start suffering for it.
Right. Yeah. So, we've talked about community and how that works and what that looks like, from a system-centered community perspective. But you're probably thinking, how does that relate to me? Okay, I'm sitting in this session about saving money and using community to save my job and things like that. But how does that affect me? All right. Again, just kind of going back to that, how it's about reaching out. It's how you get that extra value out of this conference. Just by reaching out to somebody and having that hallway conversation that may be that one thing that you got at this conference that totally fixes everything when you go back. All right? It's the same thing about community. Community, if you participate, a lot of people do participate in community, and you can always participate, whether that you're providing content or you're providing solutions or you're helping provide that support. But participation is also gleaning that information from the folks who are already there and have been participating for a long time. So it actually saves you a lot of time. Think about, the toughest issue that you've faced in the last 6 months. And if you participate in community, you can actually resolve that situation a lot quicker just by locating that community, locating those people that have the same situation that you do. In fact, I don't know how many of you have attended the BOFs this week. Those are really community events. It's the ability, you've got the healthcare and the education BOFs, and it's the ability to get people that are within the same industry together who have the same issues. It's not different infrastructures. It's not different things that you're dealing with. It's the same things that you're dealing with that you get together, and it's an awesome event to know that, I'm not alone. I had this issue, and I thought, it must have been me. But you tend to find out that you're not alone. There are people that you can be supported by, and that does save you time. And community does the same thing, and we've been very good with that, at least on my IT forum, to be able to help you guys create your own subsets of communities. In fact, we have some new email lists that will be cycling up here shortly, just based on those BOFs. These people in the past, we've had these at MMS. And they kind of lose touch within 6 months after the conference. They're all gung-ho. Oh, I found somebody that's just like me. We're going to fix all of our problems. But then they kind of lose touch because they get busy, et cetera, et cetera. So, if you're into those topics in the BOS and you're interested in maybe education or in the healthcare sector, or just let me know what other industry that you're in, and we can get that created for you so that you guys can keep together, all year, instead of just dying off after about 6 months. That's just something that we do to help give you guys the technology to keep that focus. I remember working for that financial company back in the 90s, and there was that big push for work-life balance. People were trying to be a little bit kinder to employees. I'm not sure that actually ever happened. I know, at least from an IT perspective, particularly people that have not pagers now, but have the smartphones with the ability for anyone in the company to reach you. I'm not sure that happens in the IT world. It's sure nice, to see it when it happens. But by utilizing community, by utilizing it in your job, you can create your own work-life balance. Okay, so if you have this issue, it's too tough to fix. Send it out to the community instead of trying to create a Microsoft ticket. Of course, Microsoft appreciates what we do as a system-centered community, and I hear that constantly. And across during this conference, they understand that we're like almost the first line of defense for these issues, because if someone has brought it up and had an issue, there's probably a solution, because it is a worldwide community. Somebody somewhere has a solution to that. And so if you can get that fixed right now, instead of having to wait a couple days to work through issues, then that's extremely valuable. It gives you that extra time. Go home and have dinner with the family. And it also helps with your IT costs. You think about working less time, and potentially people are doing true-ups with software licensing, stuff like that. And if you ever work with Configuration Manager, you know that Configuration Manager is an awesome product when it comes to inventory and discovery, because it inventories and discovers everything. But then at the end of the day, you still have to go through and do something with that data and information, like reporting, queries, et cetera, et cetera. So if there's a repository somewhere or there's a community that already has that done for you, why create it yourself? Why not just ask somebody for that information? And that will definitely save you a lot of time and save you those costs from having to, create that support ticket. So how community helps vendors. This is always kind of an interesting slide, or an interesting concept, I guess. How community actually helps vendors. It's actually important for vendors too. You think about the kind of data and information that vendors can actually get back just by watching conversations within a community. It's not one of those creepy, the vendors stalking you on Facebook. No, it's more or less they're trying to interact and trying to get feedback about products, just like Ron talked about. Microsoft, is one of those companies that is very, very good about taking customer information and doing something with it. If you have complaints, they'll write that list down. If you have product suggestions, those are pain points for them. They really are, because they want to produce a product that you want to use that is easier to use than probably the previous version. But Microsoft is like that. There's several vendors like that. We've been fortunate. That I talked about the sponsors for my IT Forum. We have been very fortunate. I don't know how it happens, luck or what have you, but those people that actually do sponsor, those vendors that sponsor my IT Forum, they're just like that. They love that criticism. They love that constant feedback. And what you'll find, at least within this community, it's not an in-your-face, hey, we want to sell a product. No, it's, I want to understand what your issues are. Maybe I can fix that technically, not with my product. Maybe I can just help fix that. I want to build that friendship, and then it's an afterthought. Oh, this guy helped me from this company. So it's up to you to make that choice whether you want to check out what their solution is. And we've been very good about that over the years, because it's easy for, when you sell banner advertisements or you do things for companies like that, it's very easy to get into trying to push their products because, it makes you look good. But we've been very good to keep that, at bay. So it's not something that you're going to get in your face type of thing. And again, I go back to the example of 1E. Those folks, some really good people in that company. And as a community, from a community perspective, they're just one-on-one people, just love to talk to you and not even talk about a product. Just let you know that they're there to help you out with whatever issues that you have. It helps with their support cost as we create this ecosystem, this third-party ecosystem to create this support. And we'll talk about those vehicles here shortly, but it gives them the ability to actually focus and concentrate on what the products need to be and what the future and the roadmap needs to look like. Because we're like the first line of defense, like I said with Microsoft. The first line of defense, we can solve issues that they don't have to deal with later on. Microsoft does want to help. But if somebody else has done it somewhere else in a real-world setting, and I mention that because a lot of times, you deal with Microsoft and they know how the product should work, right? They know how the product should work based on how they've developed it. But, everybody's infrastructure is different. Everybody's situation is different. So when you find those community individuals, you can fix that problem from a real-world perspective, something that will actually work for you probably the first time instead of, let's work through a few different bullet points. It saves marketing cost for vendors because they have one location, one central location to get that feedback. And so eventually they get to build products that you actually want to use. You look at System Center 2012, there's some exciting products within that suite. A couple things that, just highlight in my mind, I've always been a configuration manager guy, but Orchestrator is exciting, and that's come from feedback. That the community has given. And VMM, Virtual Machine Manager, personally, I think it's probably the wrong name for that product, and I hope they change it soon because it does so much more than just virtualization stuff. So they have listened, and they've actually built products that people are excited about. You look at the attendance numbers this year, 5,500, like I said. Those seem to be excited people. People actually want to come to Vegas, not because it's Vegas, but they want to come because they want to hear about the products. So that's what community does. So best practices, who has the best bacon? I always use that. Everybody loves bacon, right? Well, except for the conference bacon.
Pigs.
I've not had a lot of success with that. Was it turkey? Turkey bacon? So who has the best bacon? And when we talk about community, whether it's websites or blogs versus community versus vendor support, it's easy to take a look at a website or what the vendor is doing from their support standpoint these days and just kind of label everything community. And quite honestly, it is all part of the community, but if it's a website or blog that you like, it should definitely be highlighted in some community somewhere. There needs to be that focus. You can go to a community and actually share that with those folks. We've always considered that there has to be a way to kind of bring that focus together. Anybody and everybody can have a blog. That's just the way it is these days. Just like everybody can have a Facebook page. You want a Facebook page, put up a Facebook page. But how many people are actually going to find that? You may find that and think, no, this is awesome information. But unless you share that with a common community, nobody else is going to get that. So we kind of pull that in, the vendor support and the websites. And when I talk about vendor support, one of the very best vendors at supporting their own products, in my opinion, is Dell. For anybody that has deployed Dell products, Dell laptops, the driver packs that they include, that they provide on their website is just incredible. And they've done a really good job providing those based on community feedback. Dell participates in the MIT Forum community constantly. So they're getting that feedback, and that is a direct result of that. HP just recently started providing those driver packs. We'll see how that works out, and hopefully they can kind of catch up, I guess, to Dell, at least within the minds of the community. So we also believe, and we've always believed, that there are two types of people in the world. It's a little bit more than that, but you can bring it down to black and white. There are those people that like to go get information. You don't like all that stuff, being inundated with all that information. There are those type of people that like to go get information. But there are also the people that like to have that information come to them. I'm the second person. I'm a big email guy. I spend most of my day within Microsoft Outlook. I love the information to come to me so I can sift through and do what I want to with it, read it when I want to, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll talk about some vehicles that MIT Forum deploys to be able to actually accommodate those two types of people. It's push versus pull. There are certain people that like to kind of coordinate this just a little bit. There are those that are researchers, and those that are consumers. Just again, like I said, those people go get the information, and those that like it to come to them.
Then there's like I am. I'm a hybrid. Not that I drive a hybrid, but I am a hybrid because I like to get the info pushed to me, but also like to go and get it. So I've got a little bit of both of that, and I know there's a lot of people that like to go and get it. There's a lot of people that like it to come to you, but you need to find the community that best fits you. If it's MIT Forum, then great. That's where we want you to be homed at. But if we can't deliver the mechanisms that you want, and other communities do, let us know. I mean, by all means, we want to improve. We want to listen to the community and get the right mechanisms available for you. But if another community is providing those for you, by all means, stay where you are. Feel at home there. Just participate somewhere.
Yeah, that's the important fact, is that you do need to participate. You do need to participate in community, particularly within these types of technologies, because the information and the data is already out there for you. I mean, if you've not done that, if you've not stepped out to do that, I definitely seriously think that you should. So one of the pieces of community that we've always envisioned and that we've always put together that any community should have is articles. You see a lot of these websites and things that do produce really good content. So, like MIT Forum has thousands of articles. We've gone back since, 98. So that's a huge store of information. So the issues that you're working on today, you may experience something that was probably solved 2 or 3 years back. Maybe you're still working with some older technology or some older solutions. So the ability to be able to have that information store available to you constantly, you need to be able to do that. You need to be able to pinpoint and find that information. Any community that you cannot find in a Google search, because most people use the search engines. That's the first place you go when you start to do your research. Communities should be able to be found within those search engines. So you need to find a good community that does that. Blog versus article, a lot of websites, My IT Forum is the same way. We have 2 types of content. Blogs, people write the blogs and the articles. An article to me is more of a very thought out, well thought out piece of information that they tested and put together, screen captures and scripts and blah, blah, blah. And the blogs, we also provide those as well. And those are just, almost like an extended Twitter in some cases, A lot of people do like to write those lengthy things, but from a blog perspective, it's just you found something that was interesting, you had something happen at work that you solved really quickly, just post it up. And it actually shows that those people are dedicated to getting that content and sharing it with everyone. And the blogs, like I said, like I mentioned, those are just the quick thoughts from the authors at times, and we definitely have those, and sharing things, sharing scripts, giving the ability to do that, being able to consume that information, again, having that information come to you. You can either go get it on the web, or you can pull it through RSS, but you definitely want to participate. Somebody has a good blog post, definitely comment on that, let them know, because from a community perspective, if you continually are producing content and nobody ever pats you on the back or says anything, you're like, oh, I wonder if that was even valuable or not. So within the community, just make sure that you do participate in that way. Thank somebody for something, because it is easy for us as humans to glean that information and kind of forget that there's a real person on the end of that, particularly when it's the internet, particularly when it's electronic. Also, a lot of people, and we've found, and particularly through the SCCM Guru webcast series, people just love the media. People love to be able to sit and listen to a podcast while they continue to work. I mean, that's the way I am. If I have a video going, I kind of have to watch it. I have to kind of stop working. I prefer the audio piece myself, so I can work and continue to listen and download it later. So My IT Forum actually has My IT Forum TV that I think we've over 5,000 videos and things like that you can actually take a look at, whether it's news, you get your training that way, and also product demos. I was talking about the podcast. For those that aren't aware of it, you should definitely check out the SCCM Guru webcast series. Like I said, it's been hugely popular, and all the information that we've gotten back, it's been very valuable. And you can actually download those on iTunes and watch those again, and replays on YouTube and things like that. But those are another part of community. People submit those, the webcast, but also people submit their own media content. So that's another thing that community should definitely do. Newsletter. My IT Forum has produced a newsletter in the past, which gives you a good piece of what has happened on the website within content and blogs. And I think that's important for any community. A community that doesn't have a newsletter or some sort of newsletter, I think they're missing out on a lot of value that they could provide you. So that's definitely something that you want to find, because it's hard the amount of time that we in IT work to be able to actually pick through and find the information that you want. No, I got to go to the website and I got to figure this out. And okay, what happened today? But through a newsletter, and if you can, those people that like to receive those, you get a list of the daily activity, and then you can kind of pick and choose where you participate. We actually do have a wiki on My IT Forum. To me, I think we're actually going to de-evolve that. Wiki is not exactly my favorite technology. It never has been. you almost have to put someone in charge of an area on a wiki. And for those that are familiar, Microsoft has recently started to push their wiki a little more with their survival guides, the System Center 2012 different product survival guides, which is great until you start looking at it, and it's a lot of people that have gone in and edited the content, and it's like, hey, look at me, I've got a link, I'm going to put it in the survival guide. So wiki kind of contributes to that type of thing, and unfortunately, from the wiki perspective and from the Microsoft perspective, there has to be some other technology that evolves or replaces that, because wiki to me is like a 4 or 5 year old technology, and it needs to be replaced. Wiki is not the best place for that kind of content. While we do have that wiki, we're actually starting to migrate that now into something else that we've done on the website. We have actually gone even further in MIT Forum to communitize it even more, as far as interaction and things like that, which you can take a look at, but that will replace the wiki. And forums. Everybody is used to forums. How many participate in the Microsoft Social TechNet forums? Excellent. That was another one of those things that MIT Forum did extremely well. We've worked with Microsoft for a long time. With the web-based forums, you just basically go out and get your information, you participate there. Instead of the information coming to you again, you go out and get that information for those types of people. But we've done these successfully a long time, and all of a sudden, Microsoft's going to create their own web-based forums. And before that, it was the news groups. The NNTP is finally a dead technology, and everybody has kind of embraced the web-based forums. So all that content that is sitting there, that has been there forever, you can search through or post your own information. And one thing that I definitely want to highlight, at least within this community, within the System Center community, is the way people hold themselves online, the way that people interact. There are certain communities online that, I participate in a lot of different communities. You think, it's an MIT Forum thing, that's the only thing he does. Now, I participate in a lot of different communities, and the majority of them, and I don't know how many of you participate and how much experience you have with that, you ask what they deem to be a silly, stupid question, and they'll just tell you to read the manual, and that's the only response you get. For some reason, and luckily, just how it has all happened and worked out, and the way that MIT Forum is managed, that community is not like that at all. It's very good at policing those people that do act like that come into the community that are new, and kind of get them, under wraps to understand what community is really about. You think about where you live in your neighborhood. You have those neighbors that, everybody just kind of walks really fast by their house because, they're afraid they're going to yell at you for being on their lawn or something. But, there's a lot of different personalities and individuals within the community, but MIT Forum has done a really good job of just having these really nice, kind people. And if you've been around the conference, walking the halls, and seen some MIT Forum folks, have been able to talk to them, I think you'll realize that. It's just a different breed of community. Just like Microsoft Management Summit is a different breed of conference. There's just something completely different about it. And it is that community aspect, and that's very valuable and important to all of you. Another thing, email lists. Again, those consumers, those people that like to get that information, MIT Forum has right now roughly 22, 25 email lists. So we host an email list server, so you can get that information. In fact, it's extremely valuable. We were talking yesterday. There are a lot of people that use Gmail just to store MIT Forum emails as a database that they search. So if they're having an issue, maybe they don't have time today to read everything that transpires through there because they are highly active, but they'll use Gmail to push everything there, and they'll use that to search through. If I have an issue, somebody's probably answered it, and it's sitting in my email box, on my Gmail box, so they'll use that information. And like I mentioned earlier about the BOFs, we're going to be creating new ones here for definitely for education in the health sector. So definitely take a look at that. But those are extremely valuable because those are, while you have the web-based forums where you have to go get the information, you have to wait for somebody to respond. So there's a little lag time. The email lists are like 24 hours a day. So, anybody around the world, and quite honestly, it happens quite a bit, wake up and look in the morning and you've got somebody from somewhere else in the world asking a question, just wanting a response, and you see that interaction going on overnight while I'm sleeping. And there are a lot of people that think I don't sleep, but I actually do. But yeah, I answer email pretty much just about any time of the day. User groups, real world communities, and I asked you that question earlier, how many were part of that, and I would definitely, if you're interested in getting involved in those, I think those are extremely important. So it's just like taking that online world and moving it offline, so like within your geographic location, so you can find those people and you can meet. We have a bunch of different user groups that we foster with the MIT Forum. A few are hosted there, some are hosted elsewhere, but we help get speakers and things like that, and get you locations to meet in and things. So whatever we can do to get that done for you, we'll do, because I think that's extremely important to be able to do that, just to meet in that type of setting. It's almost like a mini MMS conference, but in the real world. And the vendors, I talked about that earlier, the sponsors. We actually have preferred solutions providers, our sponsors on my IT Forum. I definitely entreat you to check those out. So you get to take a look at this solutions guide. These are the people that we have identified that are community vendors, the ones that are not going to call you every fifth Monday and ask why you've not signed a contract yet. These are the folks that want your input and want to know what you think about solutions and products, and if there's something that can solve your issues. These people are community participants, just like we mentioned. So how it works, you guys may think you've seen a lot of exposure, MIT Forum, around the Microsoft Management Summit. You may think, and this is one of those things that just gets me sometimes. People think my IT Forum is a cash cow, that Ron and myself, we do this full time and we ride in limos all the time. No joke.
No.
Yeah, but that's not true. The only thing that we do, we are dedicated to community. We're community people. We both have jobs, but we want to make sure that this community is fostered, this community is managed, and this community continues, because it's not only important to you guys, it's also important to those that are involved with Microsoft Management Summit and things like that. So it is a free resource. It's completely vendor sponsored, like we've mentioned before, but those vendors that are community participants. All we really want to do is just to keep it alive, is become that one thing that just really needs to exist. So we do whatever it takes, through donations, but we always talk about how do you participate, and it's the content, it's what you provide, really. It's powered, my IT Forum is powered by you, because it's the content and the support that you give that kind of keeps it thriving and keeps it alive, and any community is like that. So one thing that I would definitely love to leave you with, and something that you would actually remember, is just to get involved. Whether it's my IT Forum, whether it's some people that you've met this week in a BOF, whether it's a local user group, you really do need to get involved, because it is important to your professional life to know that there are other people out there just like you who you guys can solve problems together. And my IT Forum, of course, you can write articles, you participate in the forums, the email lists, which are extremely popular and active, be a blogger, but ultimately spread the word. Spread the word about community. I'm this community evangelist, and this is one of those things that it gets me, to see people at a conference sometimes attending potentially for the first time, even the second time. I was talking to some people this year that said, I attended last year, and I just didn't really reach out, and it was just a horrible conference. Last year was a great conference, folks, all right? It really was. But for those people that didn't step out and do that community thing, didn't interact with other people, the one individual said he didn't have a good time last year. He didn't get a lot out of it, but it was just simply because of that. And the reason why we had that conversation, we were at the MIT Forum party on Tuesday night, and he decided this year to step out and do that. And he's like, oh, this place is awesome. Yeah. This is great. So it really does provide a lot of value for you to just kind of step out like that. There's some of our solutions providers. That's really all we have, from a community perspective, just to show you that. But anybody have any questions? We can still talk like I said, offline afterwards about, potentially joining some of those BOFs or getting a user group set up for you guys. Definitely want to do that. Anybody have any questions for us? It could be personal.
Did you really drive the Mustang?
No. No Mustangs.
But anyway, yeah.
So I actually have a question about policing the site. So you do some policing around that, making sure nobody's nasty or anything on it. Now what about people that actually provide content, but it's worthless content? Do you guys actually say 1 to 10, you suck every time, you never can, because that's what happens. So eventually, I'm like you, I consume. I hate the research. I'm like, I got to get it out as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
I don't want to go to
I have a-
or some guy had a unique situation at one location in, Taboo or something, right? And
Yeah.
then I'm like, that really doesn't help me. So I have to go through 50 of those articles to get to the one golden egg.
Right.
You have,
Sure.
I was just going to say how many times has that happened because to me, there's some things that I see where I'm like, wow, yeah, that's a really unique situation, but there's going to be one other guy in the world 5 years from now who's going to care.
and that's nice, except when you have to go through 50 articles to
Right.
get that one unique situation.
Well, it's all community.
You're like, well, what did I do?
Yeah.
I spent 3 days. Then you're thinking I should have just picked up the phone, called Premier. That's when you kind of said, I spent 3 days. How much did I cost the company when I could have picked
Yeah.
I can tell you one thing. I've been working with my IT firm for a long time with
Yep.
the bloggers and email guys and stuff. And I can see exactly where you come from. Because I've gone out and done a lot of Google searches on a particular problem.
Yep.
And you spend all this time trying to find the answer to a problem.
Yep.
You're faster going to the email list, posting
Okay.
your question on the email list, and you get faster response.
Okay.
And a lot of times they'll route you to the right content you're looking for.
Yeah.
Matt.
I would say I've actually done both. I'll post on my IT forum, post to my,
Yeah.
Microsoft, I mean, call Microsoft, or just to see,
So see which one's quicker.
who wins.
See, it's like Mustang versus Camaro, and Mustang wins. Yeah.
I can
No way. No way. Yes, sir.
This is John Weston with Microsoft on Twitter, known as TechNet Guy.
Yes.
TechNet guy.
The question I have for you is,
Wow.
my opinions of Twitter today is very few system administrators use it. Where do you see the future of Twitter in this information age and community?
Well, I'm a big Twitter person. And in fact, when I get into technologies or new technologies, I really just get into it and try to figure it out. So not a lot of people have time to do that. To me, Twitter is like the conduit for everything because, Twitter can use those special hashtags that go. I can send, if I'm tweeting about something that my family might like, I'm going to put the Facebook hashtag in and go. I personally, from an IT perspective, you're still looking at 140 characters. How much sharing can you actually do? The unfortunate thing is that's how I think. I think in 140 characters, so it's easy for me, all right? But from a consumption standpoint, I believe it is invaluable. Now, they don't use it, and maybe they don't do a lot of posting, but I think it is extremely valuable, and there needs to be a way to be able to pull that information in so that it can also be consumed, maybe not on Twitter, because, Twitter is a mess, the website itself. There are a lot of tools and clients that you can utilize, but again, unless you, and this is one of those things, those gotchas about Twitter, unless you pay like a premium per month or something for a service, there's nothing that you can actually do to get that data and do something meaningful with it. So, yeah, that is an issue. But
It's evolving.
Yeah.
Look at where it was last year at this time. We had 5,000 tweets on hashtag MMS 2012 on day one.
Yeah, and that's extremely valuable content. And Microsoft sees that. You think about a conference like this. You've got the sessions. You have the on-demand stuff, which is new this year. But you still have these folks that are sitting back in the cubicle, and they're missing out on all this great stuff, this stuff we were talking about, this community aspect, where you're meeting somebody in the hallway. Now, Twitter is a way for them to kind of get that, and get that community aspect. But you're right, there are not enough people use it, and maybe it's more of an education process. Because I've talked to several people this week. They're like, "How do I win that Vespa?" Well, you got to be part of Twitter. I don't have a Twitter account. So I think it's an education process because there is extreme value in that, in my opinion.
So I took a challenge probably 6 months ago. I was challenged to give up my search engine for a week, for a month, to get better results. And Balmer challenged MVPs 3 years ago at the MVP Summit to get rid of Google, just use Bing for a month. Well, I took it on. I was like, I didn't think I would. I thought there's no way I'll give up Google. Well, I did. I'm a Bing fanatic, or I was. And then I was challenged probably 6 months ago to, if I'm looking for something recent, search Twitter first. I was like, no way. It will not work. Absolutely, hands down, is the best search. If you want something recent, go to Twitter and hit search because you will find it there before you'll find it on Google or Bing. It works. I was amazed.
Hang out afterwards. I want to shake your hand. Yeah.
Wow. Sorry.
Yeah.
Another website copies and pastes it, and some websites want to make money from there as well. Like there's a website which does that. So how do you control content like this is your original content on your website? It comes after 3 or 4 like different searches.
Well, could you step up the microphone because I heard pieces.
If I search something for Active Directory, okay. There are a couple of websites you search in Google, they show up higher in the list. And if I go to Windows IT Pro, the same content is there, but someone copies and pastes it, and sometimes it's on paid website as well. So how do you control it? Or yeah,
how do you control? Well, what you'll find, and I think a lot of communities are like this, but I know positively that my IT Forum is like this. We have had people do that before. And I have a specific individual in mind. I'm not even going to mention her name. However, that does happen. And if you have a good community, if you have a good ecosystem, good thriving ecosystem, somebody will email you and say, you know what, this is a problem. And we generally just take care of it. We'll wipe it off the website and email that person directly, say, you're representing community. Please, refrain from doing that, and either they'll respond and say oops, or they'll respond and say I didn't think I was doing anything wrong, and then we kind of educate a little bit because that does happen sometimes. People just copy and that's horrible.
Personal example. I have a web tool for Config Manager. Works great. Go download it. If you want a console that's not that MMC, get the web console. Had an individual email me and say, hey, Joe Blow out here took your web page, and mine's free, took your web page and is selling it per copy, and it is your exact source code. So I had him mysteriously buy it, sent me the source code, had the same typo that I particularly put in the code, and it's exactly in there. So he emailed me. I emailed the guy, and he's like, forget it. I'm making money off this. Don't do anything. I'm going to continue to do it. So I had a lawyer draft up a letter, sent him the letter, and he still didn't stop. So I sent him the second one that was, do this again, and I will come and get you. And so it since has stopped. But that's the power of the community. Oddly enough, I was lucky enough to have a typo in my code. And, he was lucky enough not to change that typo, so it happens. But, the community is it's a vast community, and people recognize your work. And, if people are profiting off work that you do for free, shame on them, but the community will catch that person and it'll be offered and, dealt with.
Yeah. So yeah, you'll find that. I mean, a lot. I'm sure you've seen it because you brought that question up. But at least this community they're very good at locating and identifying and reporting stuff like that. So, we've never had too much of that, but the issues we've resolved them extremely quickly.
And with the way Google and Bing do their criteria for sorting, the heavily trafficked sites will always appear at the top. That
Search
way,
engines are broken.
If you look at Microsoft, if you search System Center Configuration Manager, my IT Forum is 2, 1, depending on what search engine you go to, and Microsoft is 1 or 2, depending on what search engine you go to. So, if you really utilize Google or Bing with the search engines properly, your results will, you can steer your results where you want them to go.
Yeah, because a couple of websites, they paste everything like useless content also.
Yes.
And then later on you find out it's copied from another website, and it just wastes waste your time,
Yeah. There's always going to be people that scrape, just paste their stuff over. There's always going to be those people in Vegas that try to hand you stuff you really don't want. Yeah. So it happens. You just have to ignore it and walk on.
There are those people too that I found, and I don't think it's always malicious. I don't think they do it on purpose. People just want to share sometimes, and it's an education process. And so, since we've been doing this forever, we're very good at also educating them how things should work, because even if they are trying to promote somebody else's content, to me it's okay to do that with a link, but the commentary, what you liked about it, almost a review of that person's content, and then send them back to where you got it originally. So sometimes it's also an education process.
All right, Henry.
One of the things I wanted to mention, I've been with my IT forum since the beginning. One of the things I like to talk about is before Rod ever get involved in a problem on a list, like the SMS list as an example, if someone brings nasty with someone, the list itself will come down on them. I mean, the people that post on it every day, someone from the front row there, various other more outspoken people sometimes will jump in sometimes and just blast the person.
They do it, so to add a little bit to Henry, we prefer it not to be public bashing, that it be sent offline, and 99% of the people do that very well. There's that 1% where they like to publicly bash people. When that 1% publicly blasts people, then that person in return gets bashed privately by me, Rod, other people in the community. So we try to steer away from, if you ask the question, what is Config Manager? You're going to get Configuration Manager as this. You're not going to get the RTFM. That just is not something that we will do. If you do that, if you do get that response, I can guarantee you that I will personally email the person that sent it to you, and we'll take care of that in the offline with that individual.
If you do see some silly emails sometimes, it's probably just one of us that know each other.
Yeah, and we do have an off-topic, so we'll steer people to that off-topic list where it's free reign.
Yeah,
I feel like
for
the
those
light's going to fall.
Those who've never been to Vegas before, that's the wind. The first time I had ever been to Vegas and I heard that, I thought, earthquake. But no, yeah, it's windy season.
It's the air conditioner, full blast.
Anybody with
Any other questions?
And
Don't be shy.
So tell me about how we can help you get certified or get a job.
We do have job posting, which, yes, is not on the list. So as jobs appear, we will get them posted up on my IT forum. You can subscribe to that, send your resume. It goes directly to the individual that originally posted the job. You cannot contact that person directly because it's all masked.
it's completely private, yeah.
Yeah, it's completely private. We do exam crams. Garth has been the champion of that, which is another fellow MVP. He loves to educate people, loves to get people get people active in taking the exams because there's huge benefit for that, and he has a great passion for that. So anytime I have an exam question or somebody has an exam question, I always steer them towards Garth. He loves to answer those type of questions along with everything else.
He loves to hug users, yeah.
He is Canadian, so don't hold that against him.
He wears pink shirts. Yeah, one thing just to highlight about the job thing, and then we'll get to that question. Participating in community, that's another level of, I should have mentioned earlier, but that actually helps your professional career by participating in community. The more knowledgeable you become, the more you put yourself out there and people take notice. You shouldn't do it to get a better job, but it's just one of those perks that sometimes it just happens. I can't tell you, I can't count probably anymore the number of people that have gone through my IT Forum and now work for Microsoft. Some of the most intelligent folks, those that have been here before. Michael Schultz, probably the smartest guy I know, except for
Without
Ron,
a doubt.
of course. Sorry.
No, without a doubt.
But these people work for Microsoft, so there is another side to participating in community.
And participation in the community will get you in the spotlight for Microsoft, which in return could get you featured as a Microsoft MVP. It's happened to 41 out of 44 individuals that are currently Microsoft Configuration Manager MVPs. It happened to me, it's happened to Sherry, to Matthew, to Garth, to Rod. So those are avenues to, if you really are engaged in the community and you really have a passion for sharing your knowledge, Microsoft will see that and you could end up becoming a fellow MVP. Which then you get to sit with the devs and tell them that their code sucks and they change it until you get a CM 2012. Yes, sir.
So, kind of going on with what you guys are talking about, participating in communities. How does somebody get to the point where they are participating? Because I've gone to my IT forums and a couple other places, and I get a lot of information and I solve a lot of my problems by doing that. But I don't know that I can add any value. I don't know that I have any information that I can give.
There's nothing wrong with that.
But however, side note to that is, as you go through your solutions and build the solutions that solve your problems, share that knowledge with us. Come to me and I'll give you my business card. Email me. We'll get you set up as an article writer or a blogger, or even the email list. I mean, all those things get recognized and captured.
My first participation, there was a weird issue that happened, and I put it in the forum because I wasn't an article writer at the time. And Rod saw it, and he made it into an article. That was my first participation. I thought it was just like, okay, I'll put it out there just because I thought it was weird. And then he turned it into an article because that he thought it was worth it being an article, which I thought was really cool.
And
And that's what
6 years later, she's one of the best MVPs out there.
So if you think it's going to maybe even, honestly, I started using mine for my blog as my memory storage because it's happened twice now where I'm like, I know I've seen this before, and I search for it, and it's in my blog answer, kind of sad, but
She's answering her own questions.
yeah.
She talks to herself in the mirror every morning too.
How do you know?
Yes, sir.
Where do y'all plan to move the wiki information? What do y'all plan to do with it?
Suck it into articles.
Okay.
Yeah. Some articles, and there's also some components, part of those new groups that we've created. Yeah, or a lot of that. Because, like, for example, we have this piece of the wiki that it's like the history of Microsoft Management Summit, which is, we've cultivated for years and years and years. And that's actually being moved into the Microsoft Management Community Group. We have what's on the site, they're called community groups, and it's just the ability for you to join an online group. So it's a subset of a community. Gives you the ability to subscribe to that group. You can choose to whether to receive emails or not when new things are posted or people are commenting. Almost like a forum, but it's more interactive and it's more of a, I'm a part of this group type thing, which is actually pretty cool. We did that this year for the Microsoft Management Summit, and the Microsoft Management Summit community group itself just took off. So a lot of content was posted there, and in fact, that's where we store all the documents that you need for Microsoft Management Summit year. That's where the Twitter Army Guide, the official link, is at. So.
And as we continue to grow, I mean, there's a lot in here. There's a lot in Rod's head that we want to resolve, to add, to fix, to change on my IT forum. And as we, get time to be able to do it, we're always expanding, always adding, always changing something in the background. Sometimes they're not visible for the end user, for the community, but they are improvements to have a better search feature within the site, because there for a while it was broken. It didn't work very well at all. Still doesn't work the way that I want it to, the way that I have it in my head. It's limitations to other things that are in my head of why it's not fixed. So as we continue to reach out to the community and find those SQL gurus and SQL gods that I can bounce ideas off of, then those resolutions are coming faster and faster. So,
any other questions? We've got about 5 minutes.
Is it flashing?
But we can chat afterwards too. Any other quick questions? Yes.
One question here. You talked about technology and vendors. Where in your, vision or next big step, or are you talking about getting to corporates, enterprises? Because really, they are the consumer of solutions. People, professionals are trying to fix their problem.
Right.
I don't have a system on my home. Well, not yet. But this is really for them eventually. But I don't see where they fit into this community. And a lot of professionals who are actually contributing to this community, they want to be recognized as professionals in their enterprises. Right? For instance, where I work, there are technical communities inside enterprise.
Mm-hmm.
There are criteria for being technical, being senior, level 1, 2, 3, whatever. But if you look at the criteria, none of this actually fits into their criteria. They don't recognize it. They recognize other stuff.
So we do have a my IT forum. What's the term? Year one. The my IT forum award professional. What do we call it? Yes.
Yeah.
Community No.
Well, we do have our own kind of like MVP
recognition,
MVP program that continues to evolve. So we can't kind of do that, but I kind of see where you're coming from. It's almost like cultivating and creating those communities within the corporate walls, the same type of function and the same type of feel. Quite honestly, depending on how large the organization is, and I've dealt with worked for large organizations. The politics sometimes can be overwhelming to be able to get that done, or even get recognized for that type of thing. But what I get from your question is how do you take that type of thing within the corporate walls, or how do you provide that level of information? We've thought before about maybe it's a training issue. But it's something that somebody has to work with internally, with an HR group or something like that, to make sure that those things are recognized. I don't know of any technologies or anything that you could deploy. I know some people have tried like Yammer and stuff internally for it's Twitter for corporate networks and things like that, to try to do things like that. Lotus Notes, shudder.
Please.
Lotus Notes in the old days when I used to work with it. So you probably know. But Lotus Notes, they kind of had that whole group thing. And in fact, when I worked for that financial firm, we used that for internal group stuff to be able to share. But it's almost like you have to create this corporate silo. You know what I mean? So you have to be careful with what you share publicly, because some of that stuff is IP, your intellectual property. And we completely understand that, because we have people that post on the site sometimes, and I have to clean it. I have to sanitize it of all my corporate information before I can post it. They definitely want to post it. They're able to share it, but they don't want it to be attributed to a certain company or a certain group. But internally, you do have to kind of create that community. You have to create and cultivate a community within. Where that comes from and how that looks within in the entity, it's going to be up to the entity itself.
Yeah, one thing that
based
I
on
would-
managers and things like that.
I would be a little worried for, though, is some people deem that if you're out on the community writing thousands and thousands of articles, you're wasting my company time. So you'd have to make sure that all your posts are past your normal day shift, or it could get you into some trouble with, well, what are you doing spending 8 hours writing articles all day long?
Well, they're doing Facebook anyways.
Yeah. So, that's a fine line that we'd have to tiptoe around. But I mean, we're willing and open to ideas on what you have, what kind of suggestions you have to try to make it better, so that we can sort of bridge that gap and bridge it in a way that is universal type thing.
Okay, we've got 58 seconds left, and people are already entering to do something. So I really appreciate folks for showing up today. Ashley, appreciate you coming to MMS this year. I hope it's the best conference experience you've ever had, and hope to see you next year at MMS 2003 in Nollins. Thanks.
Thank
2013. Oh boy.
2013.